Hello and welcome everybody, and thank you very much for joining the Commonwealth Chamber Hong Kong's webinar today on Commonwealth Social Enterprises in Hong Kong. I'm Julia Charlton, the current chair of the Commonwealth Chamber in Hong Kong, and as we all know, social enterprises have a very important role to play here in Hong Kong. As of August this year, Hong Kong's Gini coefficient, which is a statistical measurement that represents the wealth inequality of a nation or group, is 0.47. ranking at number 48 in this year's world rankings. This means that Hong Kong's income disparity is amongst the top 1/3 of 64 regions across the globe as of this year. And social enterprises, some of whom we're going to hear from today, work tirelessly to bridge the divides and build a harmonious community through their dynamic and innovative endeavours. And despite the adverse impact of COVID-19, Hong Kong in fact saw an increase by 16% in registered social enterprises, showcasing their commitment to the improvement and well-being of Hong Kong society. So I'm very excited to have such a vibrant and amazing group of panelists, front runners in their fields of expertise. And we're very lucky that they're here with us today to talk about their social enterprises in Hong Kong. So briefly, our brilliant panel members are Mrs. Gitanjali Dhar, Chairwoman of the Women Entrepreneurs Network, amongst other things, Mr. Manoj Dhar, CEO and co-founder of IBLE, Mr. Innocent Matanga, CEO and co-founder of the Hong Kong African Centre, and Mr. Neville Shroff, President of the Parsi Zoroastrian Charity Funds of Hong Kong, Canton and Macau. Our brilliant moderator, Andrew Wells, will be saying some more about the panellists. Andrew is the General Secretary of the Commonwealth Chamber in Hong Kong. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Many thanks indeed to our chairman, Julia, for her introduction of this important webinar in Hong Kong this evening, focusing on the many issues of principle, policy and practice that affect social enterprises here in Hong Kong. My name's Andrew Wells. I'm Secretary General of the Commonwealth Chamber here, of the Commonwealth Chamber of Commerce here, and I'm delighted as moderator to have the honour of supplementing Julia's introduction of our four very well-known speakers, all of them with extraordinary, diverse and unusual backgrounds of achievements both in social enterprise and also in conventional commerce. Mr. Neville Shroff is, amongst many other things, the president of the Parsi Zoroastrian Charity Funds of Hong Kong, Canton and Macau. He's a director of the Hong Kong Tuberculosis, Chest and Heart Diseases Association, and he sits on the governing boards of the Rottenji and Tak Siew Khin hospitals. In his commercial capacity, he's chairman and CEO of Shroff and Company Limited, a major trading and logistics firm, and chairman too of Direct International Limited, which deals in fashion and garments. He also sits on the general committee of the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce. Neville, as always, a great pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Gitanjali Dhar is founder and director of the Sanskriti Global Group, which in Hong Kong focuses on providing training in major languages of trade and commerce, which are relatively neglected by our conventional educational system. Full disclosure here, I'm planning to enroll in one of her Hindi classes soon. She's part of a dynamic duo with her husband Manoj, being co-founder and chairwoman, as Julia mentioned, of Integrated Brilliant Education Limited, or IBLE for short. At the same time, Gitanjali is chairwoman of the Women Entrepreneur Network and has received numerous awards for her promotion of women's leadership, both in Hong Kong and overseas. Thanks for joining us. Mr. Innocent Matanga is the CEO and co-founder of the Hong Kong African Centre, which provides education and interaction between African and non-African members of our community in Hong Kong. He escaped dramatically to Hong Kong from Zimbabwe in 2013, and he's the first African refugee to graduate from a Hong Kong university. He works as an analyst in a major investment bank and is an expert in the interface between the conventional and what I believe is now called often the moral economy. And finally, Mr. Manoj Dhar is the CEO and co-founder of IBLE, which exists to promote Chinese language education support for ethnic minority children in Hong Kong. Like our other speakers, Manoj combines this social entrepreneurship with an impressive commercial record of over 20 years in the risk and compliance industry. He's a long-standing supporter of the Commonwealth, and we're delighted to have him here this evening. A big welcome then to all our speakers. So without more preliminaries, may I invite Mr. Neville Shroff to take the virtual floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrew. A very good evening to everyone. And I would firstly like to thank Julia and Andrew for organizing and coordinating this timely webinar with the pandemic still ongoing. On charity and its importance of it, I would like to touch briefly on charities and social enterprises, as many of us think a charity is simply donating money, but is also giving your heart, your time, and your effort into doing something that is meaningful for mankind. It is about giving back to society. It happens with a positive mindset and awareness for important issues like climate change, and is more than just alleviating poverty and distress. And it is about ensuring that we create an everlasting impact for our future generations. The importance of social enterprise is in supporting and creating economic, social, and intellectual wealth through providing education and employment and self-development so people can stand on their own. Social enterprises and charity done in the right way can cultivate a legacy of giving something back, what you've been fortunate to have already received. An element of luck does play a major role in life, and of course in your business. On that note, a survey conducted by Oxfam showed extreme inequality of wealth. About 2,000 of the world's billionaires are richer than 4.6 billion people in the world today. I mention this as we need to inspire and empower ourselves and everyone to engage in being more philanthropic in helping Commonwealth and all countries to alleviate poverty and disease. Social enterprises need to encourage a caring society, and only then can corporate social responsibility stem into our organizations. There are many different kinds of charities as seen in the slide. It is not always about money. People can provide their time and volunteering themselves to feed the homeless, use their teaching skills to help disadvantaged children, use their knowledge and experience to provide psychological counseling, and to provide compassion to the elderly, and the list goes on. We need social enterprises to be innovative and profitable so they can do more with different kinds of support. Global needs. There's so many underdeveloped nations, including many within our Commonwealth, who have endless issues, including the provision of clean water, sanitation, famine, and hunger. On this point, I can probably proudly say that our Zoroastrian Charity Funds has helped support the building of public toilets in India, which is so important hygienically, as well as safety, particularly for women living in dilapidated conditions with no sanitary facilities. We also support orphanages in South Africa and hospital equipment in Pakistan. Furthermore, the purchasing of rice, flour, etc. for food and hunger distribution programs globally. We use the extensive network of large organizations such as UNICEF, Habitat for Humanity, Doctors Without Borders, Oxfam, etc., to help us achieve our goal globally, which we are unable to achieve ourselves from Hong Kong. Now on to our Zoroastrian charity funds of Hong Kong, Canton, and Macau, and what we actually do. I have touched briefly on this, but before this, let me inform you that it is inherent in our Zoroastrian community in Hong Kong and globally to be philanthropic. We are firm believers of our tenets of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. In good deeds comes our benevolence. Our tiny community has been exemplary in Hong Kong. It was a Zoroastrian, Sir Omas Modi, who largely donated and founded the Hong Kong University. Another donated and formed the Rattanji Hospital, which is still today a large and functioning hospital, and the list goes on. Our charitable trust was formed in 1874 and has continued to serve the community in Hong Kong and globally. We have done this by implementing a sustainable framework for over a century. Quite an achievement for such a minuscule community. We are non-profit making with a self-generating income and do not depend on others for donations and funding of our projects. It is little known that we support over 50 charities in Hong Kong, from organizations involved in health and diseases, to elderly care homes, to help the disadvantaged children, to several ethnic minority schools and organizations, youth programs, and so forth. Plus, we support well over 100 institutions globally and many individuals. With COVID, our trust has been going the extra mile to support all deserving and needy cases. We do not discriminate or differentiate in terms of caste, creed, or religion. And we support many countries in the Commonwealth, including India, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and Pakistan. Now, how do we do this? Well, our major source of income is mainly derived from rental of our buildings and investments in global equities and bonds in a balanced portfolio. We are fortunate that our ancestors have provided us with a building that generates a large income through rentals. Whilst we explore all avenues to create additional revenue, we must be prudent to ensure that we do not take high risks. And so hence we appoint financial advisors to guide us, mainly large institutions or banks. We need to add value to ourselves, to our families and our communities. And what better way to do it than through social enterprises and charities? We have a team to support us in doing the very important and necessary due diligence prior to giving, particularly involving individual cases. Due diligence is a critical part of our trust and what the trustees do, including myself. We actually look through all individual appeals very, very carefully before we decide on supporting. Those that know me and us will know that we, as Zoroastrians, and our trust does do charity silently and discreetly, knows that we do not really inform many people of what we actually do. Succession planning. With the continuously evolving compliance regulations, governance of our trust is always at the forefront. The key is to having experienced trustees on the board. The highly educated young Zoroastrians here are heavily engrossed in their own work but still our aim is to leave a legacy for our future generations to follow. We would like to cultivate a form of emotional intelligence for our youngsters to understand, so that they may follow in our footsteps. We do provide training. We have a youth group that is quite active. Unfortunately, with pandemic, they have also been subdued in what they can do. Lastly, I would like to end with this quote from Neil Armstrong. It's one small step for man and one giant step for mankind. Hence, if we all basically play just a small part, a very small part, it would be an enormous help to mankind. Thank you all very much. Andrew, I hope I was within the time limit.
Well, even if you weren't, Neville, it was so impressive. I don't think anybody would have any problem whatsoever. Thank you very much for that presentation. And can I now please hand the virtual microphone to Mrs. Gitanjali Dar.
Thank you very much, Andrew and Julia, for having me here and extending the privilege to me as a chairperson of the Women Entrepreneurs Network. It is my pleasure to be here and to introduce the great work that we are doing as a social enterprise. And I would also like to inform the panel that WEN, short for Women Entrepreneurs Network, is a non-profit and which exists solely to support the fellow women entrepreneurs in scaling up their businesses locally as well as overseas. I will take you through the presentation briefly. Now, at a glance, if I may take you through, we've organized 68 events since 2015. 1,008 event attendees have benefited, and 135 expert speakers have been invited. Now, I would like to emphasize that all this is done by a very committed board of highly accomplished business women in Hong Kong who are doing all this on a voluntary basis. Each one of us has our own strengths, which we have put together to make one into a dynamic platform. We have a long and impressive history of supporting women business owners with a mission to empower and educate them so that they are able to scale their business through knowledge and networking. Now, these are not just words. I myself, when I joined in 2015, I have myself benefited immensely because after attending events here, I managed to scale up my business from Hong Kong to Singapore and to other locations online. WEN the USP for WEN is that we are catering to every possible segment in the market. We have uniquely formatted events. They could be circle events, workshops, the Third Eye workshop, webinars, power circles, which are very, very intense and focused circles run by experienced business women for experienced business women, one-on-one mentoring, masterclass, as well as the exit strategy, which is extremely important for any business. In all these events, the common thread is that the female founders expand and develop their business skills. There is an access to a wealth of expertise. The experts that we invite are people who are happy to share what they learned in their journey of building up their business. And it is whatever is discussed in the events stays in the event. So it's a highly trusted network of peer business women owners. Since inception, now just a brief about WEN. It actually started in the 1980s. In 2015, it was reborn in a new avatar as WEN. So all in all, till date, we have 295 years of cumulative business ownership experience, 125 plus staff employed by the board, 120 plus million members annual sales, and 5 businesses till date sold successfully by the board members. We have 2,000 followers and 350 active members, which is right now doesn't seem very big, but we have just launched our membership 2 months back. So we already have 350 active members, and we are now looking for, of course, more. So here, this is all about when that I would like to share with all of you. And as far as I'm concerned, I took over as the chairwoman in June, and taking over from, I have big boots to fill, taking over from past chairwomen who have set up their own very successful businesses. And then board is formed of all possible sectors, whether it's legal, it's education, it's compliance, it's beauty, it's all sectors of the economy which make up the board. So whatever you need, this I'm talking to all the people who have tuned in. Ven has an answer for each one of your business problems. Please do feel free to sign in or to send an email and let us know how we can help you. So this is what I have to present for Ven. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Gitanjali, for that presentation. Can I now ask Innocent Mutanga to take the floor?
I'm excited to be here to share, a bit of what we do, as well as, of course, to shield any questions later on. So basically, the Africa Center Hong Kong, was founded. Now it's going to 3 years now. We've been, in Hong Kong for this time. Of course, the last 2 years has been, particularly very interesting. In the sense of all the the changes that have been happening, the uncertainties that are happening in Hong Kong overall, and I guess what usually people ask, and why I feel like it's really the right time for the African perspective, to be out there, to be shared with people in the world, is largely that now people have to navigate all these changes, and we Africans in many ways have had to deal with a lot of these changes for centuries, and all these centuries, dealing with a lot of these uncertainties have in many ways helped us to develop a certain niche on really navigating and be able to develop a sense of resilience when it comes to dealing with these uncertainties. So going back to the topic of social entrepreneurship, a social enterprise, and as well as why and how we fit, at least in this particular conversation. I think our goal is very, very clear. When it comes to how we try to sustain ourselves. I think perhaps in line with Zoroastrian trust that has been the presentation earlier is that it's self-sustainable. And we generate revenues through our programs, so those multiple programs, cultural education programs that we do, those are the ones that we're able to generate and be able to sustain. And I always tell people that we make money so that we can have more social impact in the community, instead of the other way around. We're like, okay, let's so the focus really is like we make quite some revenues and then use those revenues to have some sort of impact. So when it comes to our mission and why we thought was very, very important to do what we do, one of our mission is largely we say is to rebrand Africa, is to change how people think of Africa, to rebrand Blackness in a sense. When historically Africa has been associated with rather outdated perceptions, be it like, oh, there's poor people who really can't do much for themselves, or something undesirable. If a parent, say they want to send their child to Africa to study, they probably, people raise eyebrows like, what? But if they say, oh, Chicago, I'm like, oh yeah, Chicago. I'm like, for your own information, it's probably more dangerous in Chicago than in most parts of Africa, in a sense. But again, I guess the American brand, in many ways, is a appealing brand for a lot of people. So we really try to sort of, do that, and we do that, rebranding effort, even when it comes to people who are saying, oh, I want to invest in Africa, sometimes people price it extremely unfair. They say, okay, I put this money into your company, because it's in Africa, I need interest of like what, 15%. Jesus Christ. I'm like, what? That's so unfair. But again, it's the perception, right? That this is Africa, therefore it's supposed to be a very risky place, a high risk place, in a sense. So we do these things through multiple activities, at least at our center here, as well as we do in schools with corporations, from food programs, education programs, art programs, so that people, be it cooking workshops, being, some, even dancing, be it, the book clubs we do, be it leadership trainings that we do, that we hope this could be really, really helpful in developing the children, for example, into becoming better fit to navigate the future. Because if anything, the African perspective is something that is really not on the table there. And I know a lot of people are struggling to navigate the current, the current environment. But for some of us, we say, this is our habitat. We are very much, familiar with the change, and we are very much familiar with uncertainties. And therefore, having an African perspective in the region or across the globe is probably what the world needs more. So yeah, I think just as an opening, I think just to touch on what we do. I'll pause here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Innocent. And now can I please ask our final speaker, Manoj, to make his presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, all. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Julia, for providing us with this opportunity and for IBEL to showcase our humble endeavors over the last few years. So IBEL is a registered charity in Hong Kong, and what we are trying to do is provide academic relief with a special emphasis on Chinese language learning to the ethnic minority children in Hong Kong. The entire objective and the key thrust is basically on providing equity and equal learning opportunities in an inclusive educational environment to the young ones of Hong Kong. What it does for them is, it allows them to navigate through the local schooling system. It allows them to navigate through the secondary schooling system. And hopefully, the reason why I say hopefully is because at the moment, the percentage of these children, and it's a very massively exploding population in Hong Kong, the percentage of these children who reach the universities in Hong Kong is abysmally low. So that's what we are trying to address, and what we have been doing is trying to fix the root cause, which starts when a child is 4.5, 5 years old, rather than treat the symptoms when it's too little, too late, and that's what we have been geared for. So we have 2 EDB registered education centers which run 6 days a week, and believe it or not, we've been running through the social unrest, and we have ran through the COVID pandemic days as well, every single day. And we have around 250 plus children who walk in and out on a daily basis. So our quintessence of IBEL is basically that of a solution provider, by constantly innovating and pivoting to adapt and adopt to the various challenges, which life throws our way. And we've seen, last 4 or 5 years, there was one Typhoon Mangkhut, T10, and then there was a bit of social unrest, and then there was COVID. So that's the way life is going to be. So we are committed towards providing an equity-based and equal and inclusive opportunity for all the children in Hong Kong. And to borrow a few phrases from Neville's presentation, irrespective of their caste, creed, religion, country of origin, ethnicity, color of hair, eyes, whatever you may want to call it. And this is the only way, honestly speaking, this is the only way to ensure social harmony and economic advancement. It sounds, we sometimes tend to forget the wise words said by our previous generations, where it always said that language is culture and culture is language. And that is why we are so wholeheartedly focused on trying to revitalize that integration of the non-Chinese speaking children into the mainstream fabric of Hong Kong society. So moving on to the next slide, and my final slide. So that's a little bit about myself. I mean, Andrew has been very kind and already introduced me. In my previous life, some 4,000 years ago, I used to be a banker. And this year, our organization has grown very well. Earlier this year, the SCMP awarded us the HR Appreciation Award in the HEO category, which was basically, respecting us and crediting us with having run through the COVID pandemic and not had any layoffs and not had any pay cuts and kept ourselves fully operational and functional. In 2017, we were the winners of the Operation Santa Claus UBS NGO Leadership Program, which was a 9-month program. And that is the program which helped us launch our second center. So developing IIBL's sustainable operations and a robust ecosystem is what we are trying to do. And we are trying to do this by constantly partnering with educational institutions, by foundations, corporates, and creating opportunities for Hong Kong's underserved children. The entire thing has to be about integrating them, not just academically, but providing them various opportunities out of classroom activities, which allow for their physical well-being, their mental well-being, and gives them a sense that Hong Kong is home, and develop and get around sensing that sense of engagement and ownership with the place. Once they take pride in that, and that is how a society will integrate and develop and blossom and bloom. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manoj. Yet another interesting and different perspective. 4 very, very curiously different and yet united perspectives on this area of social enterprise. Can we now open the floor to questions and answers? We've received quite a few questions already. Members of the audience, please do put in more on whichever subject or to whichever speaker or speakers you wish. May I exercise moderator's traditional privilege and ask the first question, which could be addressed really to all, I think to all speakers. It's a very basic question, which is, what's the key motive, or if you prefer, the key philosophy behind setting up a social enterprise in Hong Kong? And going beyond that, why do we need them at all? An argument which has been put to me quite forcefully by some businessmen is that because social enterprises are not obliged to have to produce a profit per se, there is no way of demonstrating the actual value they produce. So how would our different speakers respond briefly to that? Maybe I could ask Manoj to lead on that one.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. I think one key difference between pure profit-driven corporations and organizations is profit driving. So therein, it's a business opportunity which comes into play first and foremost, and then there is this entire thing and there's the entire machinery which goes around trying to create the demand. Whereas in the case of a social enterprise, the entire premise and the entire, I'm not saying it's a matter of a higher moral code or a higher social consciousness, but yes, to a certain extent, it is about addressing the social lacuna, and then dealing with the social gap first and foremost, and then figuring out a way of being self-sustaining, etc., etc. So I think fundamentally that is one major difference between a profit enterprise and a social enterprise.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment?
Well, Andrew, if I may, you asked for the key motives and all that. I think we need an understanding of the world situation today and the challenges that people are facing around the world in emerging markets and certain countries in Asia, the poverty that is existing. If more and more people can understand what is really happening in the outside world and not just within themselves, I think that is a motivation for them to maybe enlighten themselves into doing something better. I think the larger corporations, are now very much involved with CSR. And I think that's being instilled into people within their own company. And I think that's a very important factor in a driving force for social enterprises. Yes, be profitable so you can share that money around. Not saying that you should give it all away. I mean, give a small percentage away, 5%, 2%, 10%, whatever it may be, that your company can afford to do. And I think that sort of understanding is critical for social enterprises to progress forward.
Thanks, Neville. I have a question now, if I may, for Geetanjali. Are there any particular challenges that you think you face or have faced, whether it's as a conventional entrepreneur or as the head of a charity, by virtue simply of being a woman, or perhaps in fact there are advantages? What would you think about that? You need to unmute, I think.
My apologies. Yes, Andrew, I think the issues as a woman, I will come to the issues as an entrepreneur first. Of course, these days, if you're talking about particularly past couple of years, they've been very challenging for all entrepreneurs. Women in particular, for sure, because they've had to juggle the professional needs and personal needs as well. The job losses that have happened, the businesses that have folded have primarily first hit the women entrepreneurs. And also because as women, that is one aspect. The other aspect is as women try to scale up their business, as they try to get more resources, there is we as a group feel that there is a definite barrier in the market in terms of which one is getting over gradually. There traditionally has been a barrier of lack of or access to funding, basically. Apart from that, I think most of the problems would be same for female entrepreneurs or male entrepreneurs. But the funding part, I feel the rest of the market, we need to work more on it. We need to provide more access and resources to women entrepreneurs, because women think 4 steps ahead when there is a problem. So when they're presented with a problem, it will not be, so it will be a holistic solution, and that may take a little bit of time, but we need to have patience and give them more time and patience and more resources. So I think funding is the only factor which comes to my mind, and which I also am working at to break down the barrier for.
Thank you for that, Geetanjali. That's a positive answer, I think. If I can now turn to Innocent and ask you this, with your experience, both of the business world and also of the Africa Centre and social enterprise, you had a fairly rough time both before and after you came to Hong Kong. I think that's quite well known. Do you find that within Hong Kong we pride ourselves on inclusivity, but do you find that Hong Kong attitudes to race and inclusivity affect the operation of social enterprises, especially the ones that are focused on ethnic minorities here? And if you do find that, then what can you do about it?
I think, when it comes to, addressing a problem, especially a social problem, there is a need, usually the conversation, the narrative is around focusing, almost everybody like, no, you are looking too big, can you focus, which community? Okay, you say what? The Nepalese are like, oh, that's too broad, right? Can you focus a little bit more? You mean the youth? I'm like, oh, okay, the youth. I'm like, but that's still broad. There's usually the when it comes to addressing problems, there's usually the push towards focusing on a particular community.
Uh-huh.
But now the thing is, of course, that brings again that it excludes other people as well. Then that ends up excluding other people. But I totally understand, right? That you probably can't address a problem unless you are really focused on it. But you end up excluding other particular communities, who may not have a longer history in the place. Let's take, for example, Hong Kong. I think, when it comes to what we saw, the gap is that a lot of solutions that were being put in place by most of the minority-focused, social enterprise or even the charity organizations, I think they really didn't give a sense much of the Africans as a whole, anybody Black, in a sense. So those problems then they remain. I mean, for the Chinese problems, probably there's a whole social welfare department which is dedicated to addressing those. And there's the Jockey Club who's sponsoring almost all the other organizations who are doing all that, all those different activities as well. So, but there definitely were gaps, when it comes to addressing things which probably affect people of African descent, in a sense. So that's, at least, in some way where we also come in as well. But again, how we look at things is, it's not like come and help the Africans. It's not like that. It's perhaps like the Africans helping themselves, to address issues that affect themselves and be able to, of course, be it benefit from it or be it to shape the narrative from it, in a sense. So I mean, I'm totally not a big fan of the big savior, who is coming in from somewhere and say, oh yeah, I'm going to be helping you guys. Here are the toilet papers. Here are all these different things. Yeah, you just sleep and next time get the toilet paper and go to the toilet. I'm totally not a big fan of that. I'm usually the guy who's like, how do we empower, a particular individual so that they themselves, they really truly feel empowered and feel a sense of ownership in changing their own scenery, not somebody else changing their own scenery. I always say, like, being able to sit in the on the driver's seat and be able to change things. Yeah, is there an ethnic or issue to it, a class issue to it? Yeah, they definitely are. But I guess a lot of those problems are rooted in the fact that, the way people think of addressing issues and in society, it's they focus too much on focusing, and then other people get left out without the resources and the opportunities that other people have. So for us, I'm saying, okay, well, resources not, but the opportunities, there's huge opportunity gap, in a sense, which a lot of people who probably look like me will probably not have, in a sense. So there are those, and also when it comes to research data, even the census in Hong Kong, they probably at least the last census, they didn't have any important data that's useful data on Africans or anyone Black, totally useless data. But I'm also paying money for them to collect that data as well. So, I'm like, yeah, I'm paying my tax, but what you're collecting is totally not useful to me. So there's all those issues where even the money that we put into the government institutions, it doesn't really benefit us, because the way that amount is allocated, being used, is not working. So there's a lot of it. There's definitely a lot of it. Yeah.
Thanks, Innocent. I have a question from the audience from Peter Mann, addressed to Neville, which is asking that in the past, Hong Kong people have been generous contributors to the voluntary sector. Do you see that trend as continuing? I should perhaps add, I'm not actually sure that I agree that if you measure it up statistically, that they were so generous in the past, but maybe that's part of the question as well.
Thank you, Peter, for that question. Yes, certainly. I think Hong Kong has been generous in the past, Andrew. If we look at the history of generosity in Hong Kong, I think you'll find that to be the case. And if any history is anything to go by, I think it will continue in the future. But more than that, I think today's education, today's schooling in Hong Kong has got a caring curriculum in it. I mean, you find students who are going abroad to help into Vietnam, into Cambodia, into China, helping poverty-stricken areas and orphanages and people like that. So I think volunteering service amongst the youngsters is definitely growing far more than ever before, mainly because the schools are educating children into that scenario of thinking them into that mindset. So yes, I do see this trend continuing in Hong Kong, and I certainly hope it will do. Thank you.
Thanks, Neville. Another question from Peter, this one addressed to Manoj. The question is this: looks like the Hong Kong government is putting more resources, financial resources, into the education of ethnic minorities. Do you think that your efforts have raised awareness of this issue? And I would add to that as well, do you think that money is the only thing that matters in this context?
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Peter. The two questions are very close related. So without doubt, financial part funding is very, very crucial. There's absolutely no denying the fact. But I think Peter has half answered the question, that raising the awareness level, not only regarding the problem, but also raising the awareness level to get the narrative right, that like every society on this planet, this is another society, and every society has its challenges and ups and downs. So the awareness level has to be regarding the challenge, and the awareness level has also to be regarding it's a challenge, and every challenge has a solution. So it has to be a responsible build of the narrative and a responsible storytelling. If that is what people relate to and are able to understand, then yes, then funding and all becomes much easier. Now, in terms of the Hong Kong government, the Hong Kong government has been committing resources specifically towards the education of children for a while now, almost going back to 3, 4, 5 years. And 15 years of schooling in Hong Kong is free anyways, so which works out really well for the socioeconomically marginalized segment. But I think the key portion and the key part there is that while the funding and the resource commitment has been there, but the accountability of when the funding is sent and the resources were committed, how was it effectively utilized or not utilized? So I think that is the one which from the government side has to be seen. And from what one saw from their Audit Commission report in March this year, and the esteemed CE also mentioned about kindergartens in a last policy address. So I think they are moving in the right direction. And I would be so lucky if it was a bit to do with the IBELs trying to raise the awareness levels in the right direction.
Well, thanks for that. I have a question from another member of the audience, who is anonymous, and that is this. What are the major difficulties of setting up an SE, a social enterprise, in Hong Kong in comparison to setting one up somewhere else? And what are the things which may be easier in Hong Kong? For those of you who have that kind of experience, does it make any difference if you set it up in Hong Kong in the first place, or whether it's set up overseas and then you have a branch in Hong Kong? Maybe I could address that to Geetanjali in the first place.
Thank you, Andrew. I would very much love to answer that, because I'm in the process of setting up a social enterprise right now. Now, it is a very tedious process. There's a lot of paperwork, as Julia will also concur. There is a lot of paperwork required, and however, if one is really passionate about the cause and one looks around, there are plenty of resources available in Hong Kong. There are platforms like Philnet who offer some of the services pro bono, and for social enterprises setting up, they help you, which can help you in offsetting the costs, which otherwise for a startup are very, very which are humongous. So one can do a little bit of both, put in one's capital and look around for the resources which Hong Kong generously provides, and then set up a social enterprise. But one has to be ready for the long haul. One has to be ready for first setting up the company. After that, one has to apply for Section 88. Section 88 is what is the tax exempt, of course. The tax exemption is required. And then one you have to be ready for the whole thing to get registered, approved and registered for at least 12 to 15 months. If you are not taking legal help, paid legal help. And after that, once you have the Section 88, then you have to, wait for another 2 years. And hopefully, if you're lucky enough, you can get it as a member of the HKCSS. And then you are a respected social enterprise, which will be which can gain access to other services, funding, or pro bono help from other particular areas. So number one, if you do want to set up a social enterprise, one is go through the paid, get a reputed legal firm on and set it up, help them to help you set it up. And second is go do your homework, what you want to do, and then approach people for the platforms who can offer it pro bono. But you have to wait for minimum of 2 to 3 years for the whole thing to set up, get registered before you can start your operations under a registered social enterprise.
Thanks very much. I'm conscious of the time. I'm glad to see that in the chat column, quite a few questions have been put forward and answered separately. Maybe I could ask one last question for any or all speakers to consider, and that's this. If you had to sum it up briefly, what would you say, how would you say that you managed to find the resources, not only in terms of finance, which we've touched on a bit, but also simply in terms of time and people, given all the commitments which you all have to do both the work and the conventional work and the social enterprises that you do. So I leave it open to who would like to go first.
Andrew, I'll take a jab at it. I think it's a matter of the scale and the volume of the work at hand, the volume of the initiative. It's not a project, but it's because it's not time bound. So I think from that perspective, depending upon the scale, I mean, just to I can only talk from my personal experience. So when we started initially, I was literally doing that. I was trying to be in two places and run here, be extra smart with my time. But I think when you get involved in it and then you really want to do the absolute very best you can and to the very best of your abilities and do it in the widest possible manner, then I think it's difficult to be able to do two things, and which is why then I had to take a conscious decision, perhaps, to just focus on one thing and develop and extrapolate on it, and try and do the best one could possibly. So that's just my personal experience.
Very interesting. What about you, Innocent? If I can ask, because you spend 5 days plus a week at a big bank or a big financial institution of some kind, and then you spend 2 days a week at the African Center. How does that work?
Well, when you're doing something you're passionate about, it's a very, very easy thing to do. I think that's probably where the different matters. I think in addition, of course, to how easy it is for me, in a sense that it's very difficult. No doubt about it. It's definitely difficult. There are its own challenges, but a lot of those challenges, if anything, they're exciting. In a sense, like then I'm gonna be able to overcome them. But I guess one of the things that I do, is to be a bit more strategic in the long term. For example, I'm one of those guys who live in Tinsoa. For those who don't know where that is, that's about an hour away from Central. That means I need to travel every morning, come to Central. But the reason I do that is that because the work I do in the social enterprise area, it needs a lot of reading and understanding of the communities and the societies. So I have to do a lot of those readings. I'm always constantly reading in the sense. So that helps me to always be up because that's probably one of the major difference that, that usually differentiates between a social enterprise that succeeds and the one that doesn't. Because the one that doesn't probably think they've already figured it out already. They're not really reading up and learning anymore, because, they have this special access to these people, it's constantly learning and reading. I think that helps me at least to keep up, as well as, waking up early, and sleep a little less. And, I think those are some of the things that I do.
Very good. Very briefly, Geetanjali or Neville?
Well, what I do is I believe a lot in networking. I think networking and getting together a group of like-minded people who share your ideology. And when you combine the strengths of the friends or the colleagues or the peer group around you, you have a solution for the problem with everyone's strengths combined. So I am all out for networking whenever I can and spread the word around. Many times we are very afraid to ask for help, put out our problems out in the open, but it helps me. It's always helped for me to talk about them because you never know what brilliant idea the other person might come up with.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree. Very important. Neville, I have some idea how you manage because we've actually traveled together and things like that. But if you had to sum it up, if
I had to sum it up, Andrew, I mean, very, very, very simply, get a good team, get a good intellectual bunch of people together, and very important, learn to delegate. I think delegation is very important. That is something that took me a while to do because I wanted to do everything myself and just not possible. And, you can't be in two places at once, as everyone knows. So, and I cannot multitask for a start. So you can ask my wife on that point. So I do ask for support and help and delegate. So I think the key thing is to get a good team and delegate. If you can do that, it's basically solved.
So passion, persistence, team building, delegation, networking, lots of good ideas there. With the chairman's permission, I think I need now to draw this to a close if we're going to be, unless, Julia, perhaps you have any questions you'd like to put to any of our distinguished guests?
No, it's all wonderful. I will say a few words when you've finished, Andrew.
Okay. Well, I shall be brief. For all four of our distinguished speakers, as well as for the participants, thanks so much for attending. In the interest of time, we do have to bring this webinar now to a conclusion. And for those whose questions haven't been answered, as I said earlier, glad to see that some of them will be pursued later with individual speakers. There have been exchanges of messages and emails. Thank you for your patient and thorough replies to all the questions. Speaking for myself, I feel that I've learned a lot in terms of how varied and multifaceted and complicated this whole social enterprise world is in Hong Kong. I think that's probably an unappreciated fact. Unappreciated in the sense people may do one or two things, but they don't realize how many things are being done, doing good by stealth. And I think that all the unsung and largely unpaid leaders of these enterprises, such as yourselves, deserve our warm support. And it's clear, too, that the Commonwealth connection with Hong Kong social enterprises is a strong one. So let us all give our speakers a virtual round of applause for their time. And I would also like to ask participants to keep an eye on our website for future functions and events. Get in touch if you have suggestions to make. Something that we were discussing with the panelists before the start of this webinar was that probably this webinar itself would generate opportunities for follow-up other webinars, and I think that's certainly true. I can think of 2 or 3 without even trying very hard. So that's been a very productive aspect of this occasion, in my view. And with those words, now finally, can I hand the floor back to our chairman, Julia Charlton, for her concluding remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much to our great moderator, Andrew. And I'd like to thank the panelists. It was really amazing to hear from you. Neville, it was so interesting to know about the sort of subterranean work under the radar and so much of it of the Parsi Zoroastrian charity funds. Innocent, I loved your references to how you're living in the community. That is totally on the money, I think. And I thought you really hit the nail on the head when you talked about people who are focusing on focusing, because we do hear so much about that, don't we? And I also loved your references to the opportunity gap. I think that's really, really important, everywhere, but also in Hong Kong. Gitanjali, it was wonderful that you're focusing so much on women entrepreneurs. And I really think you're absolutely right when you talk about the difficulties in women raising funds for their startups and so on. That's such an issue. And there's a lot of US research in particular about how difficult it is for women to raise funds. I think we definitely have another webinar in there, Gitanjali, and maybe we can invite some of the people who are actually looking to raise money to present their projects. And thank you very much for talking about such an important initiative. I think it's so important to focus on language as a means of access to education, because without the language, it doesn't matter how much education might be there. If you can't actually make use of it, then it really is not valuable to the individual. So it's wonderful to hear from such diverse sectors, and very exciting to know that so much interesting work is going on in Hong Kong at the moment. Thank you all so much. And thank you to everyone who attended. We very much look forward to seeing you again, as Andrew said, and have a great evening. Bye.